Welcome back to The Full View. President Cyril Ramaphosa will be addressing the nation at 8 o'clock tonight. To discuss, we're now joined by SABC News' political editor, Mzwandile Mbeje. Mzwa, we can only speculate, but what might be expected from the president tonight?
Well, Francis, as you have said, we can only speculate. Of course, our speculation will be based on what has been happening. If you look at the statement that the presidency issued, they're basically saying he is addressing the nation after a number of consultations with various stakeholders. We, of course, Francis, know that part of the main issue really that has been in the country is the issue of schools. You have seen that so many schools are opening, closing, and of course almost all teacher unions have basically said maybe government needs to pause until the peak is over. Currently the country is going through the most in terms of the infections. Yesterday we recorded more than 13,000, but sadly, Francis, the number of deaths was even higher. It was actually the record since we started recording the deaths during the COVID time at 572. So looking at all those factors and what other political parties have been saying, parties like the EFF, parties like 1SA led by Maimane, and of course the unions themselves, to say perhaps the issue of schools needs to be looked at. And the World Health Organization, Francis, basically is saying, yes, if you think you've got the virus under control, I mean, it's sure, go ahead, open if it's safe. But they advise that the opening must happen in the context of low transmissions. In the country, it's not the case, Francis. So we all are speculating that perhaps the issue of schools is the one that the president will address tonight.
So, Mzwa, I mean, this could be left to the basic education minister, but there has been some criticism of the uncertainty caused by the different pronouncements on schools, nobody really knowing where they stand right now, a court case when it came to very young children. So do you think the president might want to show leadership on this? It's seen as a crucial enough issue for him to be the one to make the announcement if it is about schools.
Absolutely, Francis. Let's go back to the issue of cigarettes. When he addressed the nation, when the initial address around cigarette, he basically said the sale of cigarette will be allowed. But I think a day or two later, the Minister of Kokta basically said, well, given what many people have said, so cigarette will the sale of cigarette will be suspended again. And then there was a huge criticism, and many people were even basically saying, well, the president is being overruled by his ministers, so he is really not in charge, and who is in charge? So it caused all those arguments. But then in later interviews, I think the president himself acknowledged to say, well, a decision of that nature should be communicated by him because it needed to show that it had the blessing of everyone, particularly himself as the head of government and, of course, as the head of state. So if, as you and I are speculating that perhaps it's around schools, so he needs to show that leadership, he needs to own the decision so that people don't come back and say, oh, well, he told us that the schools will be reopened, but now somehow the schools have been closed again. So I think they took that into consideration. That's what it did, Francis, on the issue of alcohol. So it had been allowed to be sold, and then when a decision to suspend the sales again, it was him who communicated. And I think they have decided that some of those key and important decisions must be communicated by him, especially when they cause a lot of controversy.
All right, thank you so much, and we'll bring you that speech live, of course, analysis before and after on The Full View tonight. That was SABC News' political editor Mzwandile Mbeje.